their right to homeschool is challenged, when their right to homeschool is challenged by any government official. And we also provide access to a variety of educational consulting services to help anyone who wants to homeschool, starting preschool, middle school, high school. What about transcripts? What about diplomas? Can your homeschooler get into college? How can you do that? Can your homeschooler get an apprenticeship? How can you do that? These are the kinds of questions that people ask when they're considering homeschooling. And is homeschooling legal in Massachusetts? It's absolutely legal in Massachusetts, has been for a long time. You can go to hslda.org/MA, MA for Massachusetts, hslda.org/MA, to get information specific to Massachusetts and how you can homeschool legally in Massachusetts. It's a very simple process. You file a notice of intent with your local superintendent, and you have to go through a bit of a review process if you have any hassles. And I can tell you that a lot of people do have hassles from school districts in Massachusetts, but that's why we exist. HSLD exists to help our members navigate those questions, those issues that pop up when superintendents or other people who are delegated by the school committee to deal with homeschoolers cause problems. And we have lots of them every year. So I would encourage you to think about joining HSLDA. Go to hslda.org/join if you want to learn more about HSLDA and how you can join and the services that we provide. And I'll be happy to answer any questions along the way. Thanks so much, Mike.
That's awesome. So thank you, Attorney Mike Donnelly from HSLDA, and Mike will be here through the remainder of this webinar. So if you have questions regarding any legalities of homeschooling, also HSLDA in many ways is the one-stop shop for many things, including homeschooling curriculum. I know there's grants available and different things. So you definitely want to check out hslda.org. Okay. So we're going to head on over to Dr. Adam Rondeau, the co-founder of Homeschool Mass and director of Viewpoint Christian Academy, which has a physical location in Southbridge, Massachusetts, and also does a lot of virtual learning. He also offers a robust online education solution for K through 12 grade students. Go ahead, Dr. Rondeau.
All right, thanks, Mike. I appreciate the opportunity to be here, and I appreciate everyone joining, looking for Christian education options. I have been involved in Christian education here in the state of Massachusetts for going on 23 years now. I'm a founding member of Global Christian Educators Association with homeschoolmass.org. And I'm committed to Christian education because education equals discipleship. And the discipleship that our children receive is the education that they receive is the discipleship that they will have for life. And so I want to be a part of this tremendous movement. And I want to assist people in any possible way that I can to help them create opportunities for kids to get a Christian education. We're in the midst of really great opportunity, and there's a great sense of urgency that's permeating our world. And opportunities are really abounding right now to do many things, especially for pastors and for churches. And one of the greatest opportunities that churches and groups can take advantage of is right now the idea of a pod or a micro school or co-ops. And I think that eventually we'll probably see a lot of schools birthed out of this movement. But in the meantime, we're going to start seeing a lot of homeschooling and a lot of co-ops and pods and different things starting to pop up in different churches and different places all over. And I think that we can do that. Well, what's the difference between a co-op and a pod? So there's some nuances, right? A co-op usually is going to meet together once a week and do different activities. They're going to do extracurricular and these kind of things. A pod or a learning center or a micro school, they're going to meet probably multiple times a week, hybrid style, and usually they'll have a consistent curriculum that they'll use to work together to learn in that group. And so you can do these things. You can make this happen, and the internet can bring teachers, can bring tutors anywhere from and make it possible and make it feasible, so that you don't have to worry about being an expert in math, because there's plenty of those all around the world that can help. So taking advantage of technology is a huge blessing that can also propel these things forward. Now, I've had the opportunity to speak to about over 20 churches and groups in the state of Massachusetts and around the country already so far in the past year. And I've been able to help them get the ball rolling. I've been able to help some of them be successful and be in operation. I want to help you do whatever I can. So if you're a parent, what can I do? Reach out to me. I'm going to put my information in there, and myself and Homer Allen have been working together to really try to promote some of these things. And I want to be able to do that for you. So please don't hesitate to reach out. And just real quickly, let me say, I'm also the director of Viewpoint Christian Academy. Viewpoint Christian Academy is located in Southbridge, Massachusetts, but we also have a full-fledged distance learning program with students from scores of states around the country, plus a bunch of groups that have started to form that are using our curriculum and our program to help make it easier, an umbrella style program, university model almost. And I would love to be able to help you in that way, make it easier and make it more possible for you. It's very affordable and and kind of takes a lot of the work out. Let me help you make this a reality, and let me help you along the way, because I want to take my 23 years of Christian education experience, share it with you along the way as well. So help you get started, help you keep going, whatever I can do to help. Let's make this happen.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Rondeau. And Dr. Rondeau and I have been working closely over the past couple of years to start a lot of learning pods. And we've seen a tremendous amount of growth just in the past year or two. So great to hear again from you, Dr. Rondeau. Now we're going to go to Homer Allen, who's led 4 separate Christian academies, also the co-founder of Homeschool Mass. Homer, take it away.
Hello, thanks for being on the call tonight. We at Homeschool Mass, we started this organization because from a biblical point of view, we feel that children, as you would know, are at great risk in Massachusetts. Having headed Christian schools, K-12 schools, I've seen the fallout, even in a Christian school, what happens when children are often sent to a school, but there's no parent involvement in that situation. So we have a free organization, doesn't cost you anything. Years ago, I started Mass Family Institute back in 1991, and I worked a little bit with the Homeschool Legal Defense Fund. Mike Ferris started that way back when, because we realized even then, homeschools are the key to God's heart because you're training up a child. Chuck Swindoll says in some of the things he does, that phrase from Proverbs 22:6, train up a child in the way he should go, is not send your kids to a Christian school and forget about them. Make sure they go to church, memorize a whole lot of verses, and go to camp. That verse is about parent involvement in the bent. That's the word that Chuck Swindoll uses. The way is the bent of each of your children. If you have a child who is a lot different than another, you can't homeschool them in the same way or expect them to learn in the same way as another child. You are uniquely, as parents, suited to help your children come to know a closer relationship with Christ and also have an opportunity to meet with others. We're a big fan at Mass, this organization, Homeschool Mass. It's a real simple website, homeschoolmass@gmail.com, homeschoolmass@gmail.com. We're free. We're here to help you develop and work with everybody on this call to develop a way to train up your children. I have a ton of scriptures I'm sure you all know, but I'll just close with a quick story from Corrie ten Boom. Corrie ten Boom was a famous woman who was in the Holocaust, ended up in a concentration camp where she almost died. She tells a story about when she was a young girl and her father was a watchmaker. At that, she was on a train with him, and she knew the word sex, and she didn't know what it meant a lot. She knew the word sin. So she asked her father, what does sex sin mean? Her father, when she was a young girl, looked at her, and he waited a few seconds as if to think, and he said, Corrie, would you help me with that big bag that has a lot of this information, his watches and things? He was a watchmaker. And she said, sure, Dad, would you pick that up and take it out for me when we leave? So she went to pick it up and it was too heavy. She says, Dad, I can't pick this heavy bag up. I'm too young and it's too heavy. He said, that's correct, honey. What good father would have you take on what you are not ready to understand? Later, we'll talk about sex and we'll talk about sin, but now is not the age. That's what's going on in our country today. That's what's going on in Massachusetts. We invite you, please, send an email to us, take the survey that is Mike's already talked about, send it to homeschoolmass@gmail.com.
Fantastic, Homer. Thank you so much. And also, I just want to share my screen real quick before we get to the next. So as Homer was just saying, text the word school option to 87891 if you want a list of school options other than the public school in Massachusetts. So text the word school option to 87891. That's our short code. And then Homer was just talking about the learning pod idea. If you want to start a learning pod and also take the survey, that'll help us understand your needs so that we can help you. Text the word pod to 87891. Again, text the word pod to 87891. Okay, now we're going to move to the middle part of the country and hear from Pastor Daniel Jones from Herzog Charitable Foundation, whose mission is to increase quality Christian education in our nation. So go ahead, Pastor Jones. You can unmute yourself. Is Pastor Jones with us? Let me just check.
Yes, hello.
There you are. Got it. Welcome.
Thank you. You know, technology is, ahead of me for sure. I consider it a great privilege. I'm Daryl Jones, and I am the president of the Stanley M. Herzog Charitable Foundation. I spent the last 35 years as a pastor of a local congregation, and really the Lord opened the door and really moved me out of that position to focus on helping clergy and churches disciple their families in 2022 in a way that is meaningful through Christian education. And the whole focus of the Herzog Foundation is to strengthen existing Christian schools, but also to help create new ones. And certainly learning pods and hybrid homeschools are very much a part of that. And so as a matter of fact, I'm actually right now, I'm in Leesburg, Virginia, working on a donor development conference with 30 different Christian schools from around the country. And we're doing a lot of emphasis on how to help schools and pods be stronger internally, everything from how you market your school in this day and age, to donor development, to strategic plan, to building a culture where folks are wanting to be involved in, and retaining teachers, and all of those under the hood practical aspects of Christian education. One of the things that we've got coming up in August, right back here in Loudoun County, Virginia, not that far from Massachusetts, is a school startup accelerator. We're doing a 2-day conference at Cornerstone Chapel here in Leesburg, Virginia, and it's a free conference on how do you go from we want to start a learning pod to actually doing it state specific with the laws and a process that's proven that can launch those schools. And so if you go to Herzog Foundation, Herzog, herzogfoundation.com, you can find out about all the things that we're doing as a foundation to help advance Christian education across the country. Everything from our training workshops and boot camps to some online webinars, and certainly the Christian School Startup Accelerator, everything from a homeschool co-op to a hybrid or a micro school to a 5-day school. If that's what the church or the local group wants, we recognize one size doesn't fit all. And so we want to get you the tools and a plan to be able to pull that off. And one of the things unique about our foundation is that as someone goes through our process, at the halfway point, we'll then pay and assign a mentor who's actually leading the kind of school that you want. We'll pay them to coach you and your team a couple of hours a week to actually launch that school with the local resident expert as the mentor who can help answer the questions and give you some guidance as you go through that process. So herzogfoundation.com, Herzog, herzogfoundation.com, advancing Christian education across the country. We're doing it through online publications highlighting the best of Christian education through the Lion, Read Lion, R-E-A-D, Lion, Lion.com, but also through our foundation with trainings for existing Christian schools, but then really making a strong effort to launch more schools that are financially sustainable, and certainly the whole learning pod and hybrid school model, hybrid homeschool model is a part of that vision. So herzogfoundation.com for how we can come alongside you and your group or your congregation to advance Christian education in your region.
That's great. Pastor Jones, thank you so much for joining us. I was just reading an article, I think down in Virginia, they were trying to pass a law, maybe in Loudoun County, about if you malicious misgender someone, that you can discipline a child for that. I think this is a lot of the reason that people are getting out of the public school because of all this stuff going on with, orientation, identity, and CRT. So again, Herzog Foundation, wonderful organization that is truly there to train up the next generation of Christian school leaders. You guys also have an online event coming up at the end of this month, I believe.
That's correct.
Maybe Pastor Jones, you can email me that information so that I can put that out to the attendees as well.
Absolutely. I'll do that. I'll do that right now. Thank you. Thanks for this opportunity to talk with the good folks in Massachusetts. God's doing a great thing across the country, and certainly Massachusetts is a part of that.
Amen. Well, exciting to hear about your organization. So let's, I want to tell the attendees, check out what's going on in the chat. There's a lot of really interesting things people are chatting about, so you're going to want to check that out. Panelists, check out the chat as well, because there's probably some questions in the chat that you can be answering during this time. And also, panelists, continue to put your information out there in the chat so that you can take advantage of this moment to get your information out there. Okay, let's go to Tom Carroll, the Superintendent of Catholic Schools of the Archdiocese of Boston. He is the founder of Lumen Verum Academy. Go ahead, Tom.
Hi, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to address everyone tonight. We've created an option that is a little different than what people have been talking about. It's a new school called blended learning, meaning 3 of the days the instruction is delivered virtually, and 2 of the days the instruction and various other activities, including faith formation, are done in person. The audience is primarily faithful Catholics. It's meant as an alternative to some of the craziness going on in the public schools, but also some people who have critiqued some of the other schools that have run in the Archdiocese. So feel free to take a look at it if you're looking for something that's fully Catholic. We're open to taking people who are not Catholic as students, but it's designed to be primarily a Catholic school. So the website is www.lumenverumacademy.org. One of the interesting parts of it is it's a grade 6 through 12 school. We're adding 9th grade this fall, and then adding a grade each year after that. A lot of the homeschoolers that have joined us have homeschooled their children through 5th grade. And then as the material gets more and more complicated, what we offer is we have 7 faculty members and 2 campus ministers, in addition to 2 principals. So we have a full slate of very accomplished people as the teachers, and it gives you the ability to kind of pass your older kids on to us. But because of the blended learning model, your kids will still be home 3 days a week. As well, because the virtual aspect of the instruction, we have people from all over the world that are participating in the delivery of the instruction. So we have 9 people here within the Boston Archdiocese, but we also have top Catholic speakers, Sisters of Life, which is a pro-life ministry of religious sisters founded by Cardinal O'Connor. And then we have an ambassador to the Vatican. We have a classics expert in Brazil. We have people like Jason Everett and Chris Stefanik and others that are participating in the school as well. So I think it offers an interesting option. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to contact me. My email address is thomas_carroll@rcab.org. I'll put it in the chat along with the website. Thank you.
Fantastic, Tom. Thank you so much for joining us. Just want to give a shout out to Bishop McManus, who's really been taking some heat lately we've been working with him closely in Worcester, as he has been giving the Nativity School a hard time, which we think he should, because of some of the flags they've been flying over at the school. And the bishop has been a very friendly ally, as we have broken all kinds of records now in Worcester, with 3,405 students opting out of explicit sex ed in the city of Worcester. So great to have a partnership with all the parishes in Worcester to make that happen. And then also just check out all the schools again. Tom, feel free to put in. Okay, yeah, I see the link there to your school there in Braintree. And so definitely check that out. Awesome. Let's talking of Worcester, let's go to Worcester. Pastor Chris Casey from Freedom Christian Academy, a new school in Worcester. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, how you guys doing tonight? We started Freedom Christian Academy this past July, actually. We had a bunch of families in our church come to us and say, we don't want to send our kids back to school. And so the families came together. We redid the whole downstairs of our church in about 8 weeks and watched God do some pretty amazing things. Our whole goal is to have a place where kids can learn the reading, writing, and arithmetic, but what they can really focus on is learning about the love of Jesus Christ. We had 25 students our first year, and 8 of those students came to know Christ as their Lord and Savior. Our enrollment's already going up for this coming year, and we're watching God do some pretty amazing things. And so I'm really just praising God for all the work that he's doing. We have a great staff of people that are working really hard and tirelessly to further the cause of Christ here in Worcester. And we're looking forward to seeing how much more of a blessing we can be to our community.
Fantastic. So guys, check out Freedom Christian Academy in Worcester. Pastor Casey, that's a K through 12 school, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Perfect. All right, so check them out in Worcester if you're looking for a school. And let's stay in Worcester. Pastor Lisa Almeida is the pastor of, I believe, the largest Hispanic church in Worcester. They are starting a school this fall at the New Life Worship Center. So Pastor Elise, take it away.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for this opportunity. We have begun the process of organizing a learning center that we hope to initiate this fall. It is called Grow Learning Center. We will be using master books as our curriculum, and we're hoping that we can reach the Hispanic community, our African American community as well, where there are challenges in education in our public schools, as you know, but even more so when there is a language barrier and communication is not clear to parents and what their children are actually learning. So thanks to MFI over the last couple of years, we've had the opportunity to be engaged in some of the school board hearings to learn more of the curriculum that was passed last year, the 3 R's. And many families are ready to transition their children to a better place for learning, and especially with the agenda that is being portrayed. So we are hopeful that we can get the word out. We will be having a gala at the end of July where we would like to fundraise for this fall and begin our enrollment process this summer as well. So if there's any questions, we will be posting our Facebook page and also our email and more information about the Learning Center in the chat as well. So thank you, Mike, for this opportunity. And thank you, Adam, for all your wealth of knowledge throughout this process. This is definitely a new experience for us, but we are ready and willing to take on this challenge. And thank you for being that support system.
Man, well, that's
Blessings.
exciting. So excited for you guys starting this fall. You guys have really just forged ahead. So excited for you guys. Again, I'm going to just share my screen real quick just to kind of give you another reminder. So if you want to start a learning pod with parents or at your church, you want to take a survey that we have for you it's really there to better help you find a new home for an alternative school. Please do that by texting the word pod to 87891. Text the word pod to 87891. And then also, if you're looking for school options, text the word school option to 87891. Text the word school option to 87891. Okay, let's go to, let's go to Sutton and go to Pastor Don McKinnon, who's going to be starting a learning pod called Legacy Learning Center in Sutton, Massachusetts this fall. Go ahead, Don.
Hi, yeah, thanks, Mike. Yeah, so we are going to be starting, as Adam had talked about earlier, a learning pod, which is going to meet 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We actually kind of began it a little bit earlier by having some families that had reached out to us in January to come and begin really a place for them. They've had issues locally with some of the local schools. So they came together, and just the talking and really hearing what MFI and Mike King and even talking with Adam, we decided it was something we wanted to get involved in. So we're going to be offering 3 days a week. We're also going to be, while the parents are bringing the curriculum for their kids, we're also going to offer things like home economics. We've got a member of our church who's licensed in foraging. She's going to go out and show them how to forage out in the forest. I'm actually coming from public education and history and ethics and that sort of stuff. And the parents have asked me if I would teach philosophy with the kids. And we've got a mix of Christians and conservative parents who saw what was going on over the last few years with COVID and the home, the kids having to learn at home, and opened their eyes. And it's really just begun a whole, I guess, snowball effect. It's just been rolling down and seeing it around this area. So that's what we're going to be doing in this area.
That's awesome. And very excited for you, Pastor McKinnon. You guys got that learning pod started rather quickly. And that's one of the things about these learning pods is, if they are indeed a pod and not a school, coaches, not teachers. As I understand it, there's no requirement to get a approval from your local school board, and it acts a lot like a homeschool co-op. And any of those legal questions, again, guys, you can reach out to Mike Donnelly, HSLDA, Homeschool Legal Defense Association, who was on this call earlier. Okay, let's head a little east from Sutton and go to Maynard and listen now to Diana McKee, who leads the Imago School in Maynard. Go ahead, Diana. I think you might need to unmute yourself because I know you're here. Let me just see.
Here I am. Yeah.
There you go. Good to see you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you, Mike. I really appreciate the opportunity to be on tonight. And listening to all of this, I'm so grateful and thankful that people are banding together to rescue our children and our families. And the Imago School has been around for 42. We're going on our 42nd year. And we are a traditional low-tech school with a very rich education where we train minds to grasp and communicate God's natural and revealed truth clearly and well. And with that, we believe that requires that students master the skills of reading, writing, arithmetic, and have all kinds of wonderful things to think about. So we give them a context of worthwhile content, which is a body of knowledge at the heart of Western thought and culture, acquainting our students with the great writings of the past and present, and teaching them to understand the natural world through science, and exposing them to the great artistic achievements of man through music and the visual arts. And at Imago, we are in no way attempting to usurp the role of primary educators from parents, but instead we seek to come alongside parents. We are a full-time school, but we have in fact actually had some students that have come even part-time for certain classes, just for some of our co-curricular activities and things like that from the homeschool community. Imago was one of only 2% of Massachusetts schools that remained mask optional during 2021 to 2022. And there's no hidden progressive agenda with us, but only that which really acquaints our students with that great body of knowledge, which is centered on the reality of God as creator of all, and all that exists, and God as the source of all truth. It is a joy-filled, wonderful place, and we are pre-K through grade 8, right in the heart of downtown Maynard. Yeah, so if you have any questions, I would love to talk with you, or feel free to ask in the chat. And our website is just Imago, IMAGO, at imagoschool.org.
Awesome,
So thank
Diana.
you.
Well, thank you so much. Being a previous resident of Maynard, I know right where your school is, and appreciate what you guys are doing.
Yeah,
So that's fantastic. Let's
thanks so
yeah,
much.
you're welcome. Let's go to the western part of the state, to Rob and Julie Caprera, have been involved with homeschooling in Massachusetts for over 30 years and offer the Care Homeschool Consulting. Take it away, Julie and Rob.
Thank you so much, Mike. This is a real privilege to be here. And I just clap my hands in what all the rest of you guys are doing. We're Rob and Julie Caprera, and during the pandemic, we started Care Homeschool Consulting to more formally, efficiently, and effectively help homeschool families move from overwhelm and fear to confidence. We personally coach each parent we work with, and our 3+ decades of experience help give us a bird's eye perspective to be able to help parents who can be overwhelmed by being in the trees. We encourage parents with what they're doing well. We give them practical applications, and then we focus on putting a final destination in their homeschool GPS. In the link in the chat, there'll be a link for a webinar we'll be next Monday night called Me Homeschool, addressing the 3 top fears that homeschool moms have and showing how you can do it. We love our clients. We love watching them grow in confidence, and we absolutely love what we do.
Thanks, Julie. Mike, again, thanks for having us being a part of this program. Julie and I are retired homeschool parents. We have a unique perspective, as she said, based on our experience of over 30 years in the homeschool community, helping out and also raising our 3 children. We feel we know the challenges and concerns and fears that homeschooling parents face because we face them. And so because we've dealt with these things personally, we feel that we can coach the parents to work through the fears that they normally have and move to a place of confidence. So that's what our consulting business is all about. Our goal is to help the parents move from fear to confidence. We know the parents can do it, and we want to help.
That's fantastic, Rob and Julie, and thanks for all the pioneering you guys did in Massachusetts to make homeschooling a possibility for parents today. So this is just great to have you on the call. Now let's go to farther west to Missouri and see, I think David Hazel is on the phone. David Hazel is the founder of My Father's World Homeschool Curriculum and passionate about starting learning pods, micro schools around the country. Take it away, David.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so My Father's World has been around for more than 30 years. We have effectively helped about 150,000 families, maybe 400,000 kids. In the homeschooling circle, we offer complete curriculum, but really our passion is to rescue the children as fast as possible out of the current situation. We feel like public schools, we need to give families a solution. Not everyone can homeschool. About a month and a half ago, I did a micro school startup conference. We sent out a postcard saying that we were starting micro schools. We call micro schools, they can be pod schools, hybrids, homeschool hybrids, one room schoolhouses, 1 day a week, 2 day a week, 4 day a week, 5 day a week, anything that educates a group of people using the same curriculum. We really are working to serve in as many ways as possible. If you go to mfwbooks.com/microschool, you can see some microschool information there, and it will lead you to help get in contact with us. We are trying to coach schools as much as possible. We put some things together with, where can you get insurance and where can you get legal advice from HSLDA and others, and just what various models look like. We help homeschoolers at our regular site, mfwbooks.com. We have a preschool website called christianpreschool.com. We think if we can start preschools in small churches, we think every church basement should have should be taking care of their kids in some capacity. We can start a school. We're kind of a quick start option. We've had schools start as fast as a couple of weeks. We are partnering with Soaring Education Services for more long haul big school starts. I believe we are partnering with them, working with them along the way. The curriculum that we have is completely fully ready and prepared from 3 years old up through high school, and we are partnering with an organization called beunbound.us for actually some high school electives and some post-high school work with their Ascend program, because we just realized that you can't stop at any one age. We are a Hebraic classical approach that combines the various approaches of education into one easy to teach lesson plan. We say that certified teachers we are certified in education in Ephesians 4:11. It says some will be teachers. The lesson plans are written by Marie Hazel, who is a speech and language pathologist and a K-12 certified teacher with a specialty in curriculum writing. She writes her lesson plans like substitute teacher lesson plans, so that you can literally start anybody teaching a group of kids. We start schools with as few as 2 families, and I'm working with about 40 different startups right now across the nation. The largest one probably is in the neighborhood of 120 kids. We have 1-day school options and 3-day options and 5-day options. I mean, the options are yours. We just help provide you curriculum so you don't have to draw them from a bunch of sources and try to figure things out. My Father's World was originally written to be a one-room schoolhouse option back in the early 90s, and discovered that people weren't ready for one-room schoolhouses, so homeschoolers took us over. But 2020 has proven differently, and we are in contact with about 100 different schools right now as we speak.
All right, David. Well, that's exciting to learn all that you are doing across the nation for these micro schools / learning pods. A lot of synonyms for the same idea here: one room schoolhouse, So that's super exciting. Again, David Hazel, the founder of My Father's World Homeschool Curriculum as well. So that, I believe, is our list of panelists. I was looking for Rihanna. I don't think she's on tonight. If you are Rihanna, just unmute yourself so I know you're here. But otherwise, let's go to some of these questions that were coming across my desk. And I think I'm going to throw this one out to Adam Rondeau first. What is the difference between a pod and homeschool co-op? And maybe we'll get Mike Donnelly's opinion on this as well. So Adam first, then Mike.
Sure. For some people, it's kind of potato, but essentially the biggest difference is going to be that with a co-op, you're going to meet together probably about once a week and do extracurricular style activities. Have shared experiences, right? Have fellowship, community, socialization. Whereas with a learning pod, it's going to probably be a little bit more structured around spending actual time together learning, 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, whatever days a week. And you're gonna leverage the parents to help with their strengths. So this one can help teach math. This one can help teach, so you'll leverage that, or you'll hire a tutor, bring them in, but you'll all have kind of like the same program, the same curriculum as you're working through. So that would probably be the biggest difference between a pod or a co-op, in my opinion. But again, it's really a fine line. So I hope that helps.
No, very good. Let's go to Mike. Get your opinion, the difference between a pod and a co-op.
Well, it depends on what state you're in, Mike, and some states have defined learning pods, some haven't. In my home state of West Virginia, they passed a law just this past year to define learning pods. I like their definition of a learning pod because the way they define it, they say it's a voluntary association of parents who get together to participate in learning activities or educational activity. So that's a legal definition in the state of West Virginia. In Massachusetts, there is no legal definition that I'm aware of a learning pod or a homeschool co-op. A homeschool co-op is something that's been around for decades. And I can appreciate Adam's perception on that. But Adam, I'll just have to correct you here because homeschoolers have been doing learning activities in homeschool co-op environments for decades. It's not just extracurricular, although some of them offer extracurricular and some of them may focus on the extracurricular. A lot of times homeschool co-ops are organized precisely by parents for the purpose of educational activity. Now, they do typically get together just once a week. There are a few co-ops that get together maybe twice a week. I'm not aware of any homeschool co-ops that call themselves co-ops and homeschool co-ops that meet more than twice a week. When you get to 3 days a week, now you're starting to talk about something that's different from a parent-directed, parent-organized homeschool co-op. The key thing about homeschooling, I think, that distinguishes it from some of these other things that people have talked about, micro schools, learning pods, hybrid homeschool, which I think is a kind of a weird term, but is the fact that parents are the ones who are driving and directing and actively engaged in the educational activities of the child. Now, that doesn't mean that they're necessarily doing it all because, in a lot of co-ops, parents are the ones who are doing the teaching. Not always. Massachusetts, there's actually a lot of freedom to choose who you want to be educating your child, particularly as a homeschool parent. The homeschool law in Massachusetts allows parents to include pretty much anyone they want in the education of their child, as long as you put that into the education plan. And, there's, when do you have to name a person in your educational plan? Well, that's kind of your call, depends on how much, but, that's something you could ask me. Maybe I don't want to take up too much more time, but, I've been talking for 2 or 3 minutes now about the difference between learning pods and homeschool co-ops. That's kind of how we see it. And in Massachusetts, whether you call it a learning pod or a co-op, because you're meeting 1, 2, 3, 4, the reality is you have a lot of freedom to do that under the homeschool law in Massachusetts. And maybe we can talk a little bit more about that, Mike, if you like.
Yeah, that's great. And I would just reiterate what Attorney Donnelly had said, which is Massachusetts, for the time being, is relatively friendly to homeschooling, which might surprise a lot of our attendees tonight. But when you get into this world of learning pods and schools, I mean, there's really we are being intentional about saying a pod is not a school. A teacher, it's a coach, not a teacher, right? So there is a difference, and there's different law for each. So as you navigate, we're not going to be able to answer all of your legal questions, obviously, tonight, but as you navigate this world, you definitely want to get in touch with HSLDA. They are the premier legal voice in Massachusetts and the nation, really, for especially homeschooling. There's a lot of traps, a lot of pitfalls in this world, right? And you want to not fall in those. So have HSLDA become a member of them today. All right. I just want to remind you guys again, I'm just going to share my screen because I do believe that repetition matters. Maybe that's just the way I was schooled, but text the word school option to 87891. Text the word school option to 87891. I hope all of you do that tonight. We've put together a comprehensive list of alternative schools, learning pods, homeschool co-ops, traditional schools, okay, all over Massachusetts. We divided up geographically. So I saw some of you in the chat, what's in my local town city? Okay, here's the answer. Text school option to 87891. Also, if you want to take a survey, which will help us better understand your needs and also learn about learning pods. Maybe your church wants to start a learning pod. I can't think of a better opportunity in terms of the harvest fields when, we as evangelicals talk about the harvest fields all the time. Well, look at all these kids exiting the public school, looking for a place to go. And your church building probably has empty space during the week. What a fantastic opportunity. Start a learning pod. Like Pastor Don said in Sutton, they got started rather quickly. I know of a learning pod that got started in less than a month. So again, take the survey, text the word pod to 87891. Text the word pod to 87891. Okay, let's see if we have any other questions. There's a lot going on in the chat, so please pay attention to that chat. Panelists, leave your information in the chat. I'm just going to look at some of the Q&A here to see if we have anything going on. Looks like most of those questions were answered. So that's good. So just again, guys, what is the reason for this call? That you will know who's who in this world of learning pods and homeschooling. So I'm just going to go through our panelist list real quick here, just to again reiterate who to get in touch with. Okay, Dr. Adam Rondeau, co-founder of the Viewpoint Christian Academy, does a ton of online learning. So if you're looking for an online resource, with tutoring, K through 12, you got to check that out, Dr. Adam Rondeau. And again, these panelists are here now. Put stuff, if you want to know more, put your questions in the chat. Okay, put your questions in the chat and they'll get to you. Let's see, what are some other good connections? Herzog Charitable Foundation do a ton of training. If you are a learning pod, if you're a traditional school and you want to get trained, okay, by some of the best, okay, that's why they're around. They will even offer a lot of that training for free. Okay. So check out the Herzog Foundation. We heard from Tom Carroll tonight with the new school he started in Braintree, Lumen Verum Academy. Pastor Chris Casey in Worcester. Okay. Freedom Christian Academy, Pastor Elise Almeida in Worcester again, with their new school starting this fall. Pastor Don McKinnon in Sutton, Diana McKee in Maynard, Rob and Julie Caprera, they have a care homeschool consulting group. Okay, so if you want to get into homeschooling, they've been around for over 30 years in Massachusetts. So check them out, the Care Homeschool Consulting Group, if you have any questions about that. And then David Hazel with My Father's World and different curriculum there to choose from. And also helping to start microschools, another great resource in starting microschools. So check all of them out. I could tell you about 25 to 30 more learning pods, church schools that are starting either last year or this year that we've been working closely with. So there is something in your neck of the woods in Massachusetts. And again, text that word school option to 87891 for more information. Okay, well, good. Well, we are recording this. One other thing is if you text the word pod to 87891, you will get a return. You will get a text tomorrow with a link to this webinar. Okay. So please text the word pod to 87891 to get a link to this webinar. But I want to, we got finished before I thought would, guys. So this is fantastic. It's only 8:55 and I really don't see any more questions. Let me just see here. Deborah's been doing such a good job answering these questions. So I don't think I have any left here. So that's awesome. Let me just, you know what, guys, let me encourage you. I always like to encourage people. Let me just encourage you with a really cool story. I'm going to share my screen again. Some of the things that MFI has been up to, a lot of you guys on here, most of you know of Massachusetts Family Institute. I just want to tell you, Victory in Somerville. Let this encourage you. We've been working with 1,000-member Hispanic church in Somerville that wanted to start a school. And the school committee said, you can't start your Christian school unless you teach all the LGBTQ interpretation of human sexuality. Well, that was discrimination against this Hispanic church. So what did MFI do? We were first in the fight, and we actually partnered with First Liberty, and we brought up attorneys to support this church, this Hispanic church. And wouldn't you know, with our help with pro bono attorneys, this 1,000-member Hispanic church is going to start the first Christian school in Somerville, and they have about 1,000 members. So be encouraged by that. I bet a lot of you on this call didn't even know there was 1,000-member Hispanic church in Somerville. And so that's going to be starting this fall. And you already heard from Pastor Elise Almeida, the largest Hispanic church in Worcester, starting a school this fall. So be encouraged. Victory in Worcester, I mentioned this, 3,405 Worcester students have opted out of explicit sex ed this past year. Let me put that in perspective. 2 years ago, when, 2 years ago, how many kids opted out of sex ed in Worcester? 5. And then MFI got involved and said, you know what, we got to protect these kids from the explicit stuff going on in the school. And now 3,400 kids have left sex ed. And in the past 3 years, 1,000 kids in Worcester have left the public schools altogether. Guys, that's the second largest city in all of New England, okay? And then just be encouraged. There's 30 towns and cities that are working with us on opt-out campaigns right now to get kids out of sex ed. And here's just some of those towns, okay? But most likely we have information on your town, on what they're teaching in your schools, in your public schools. If you want to get involved with us to create more and more opt-outs going on in Massachusetts, text the word education to 87891. Text the word education to 87891. If you see your town or city on this list, text your town or city's name to 87891, and you'll get information on what's going on in your town or city. We put together an education map for parents that want to know, what are they teaching for sex ed in my school? Well, we've done public records requests to all cities and towns in Massachusetts on your behalf, and we are slowly but surely filling up this map so you can go on and find out what's being taught in your town or city. Text the word education to 87891 for a link to this map. Also, if you're on Facebook, join Massachusetts Informed Parents, and you will find more than you wanted to know on what's going on in your public schools sex ed class. And are we talking just middle school and high school? No, we're talking preschool through 12th grade. Okay, so check that out. Massachusetts Informed Parents. We already have 7,000 members and growing on that page, guys. So check that out. And then lastly, support what MFI is doing. Guys, we have been first in the fight on many of these issues. I could give you 5 more encouraging victories on religious liberty just this past year. COVID has been the best thing for victory for religious liberty here in Massachusetts. Save the date, guys. Come October 14th to the Newton Marriott Hotel there in Newton and join us for our annual banquet. Hang around 500 like-minded people. Be encouraged. 2 years ago, MFI's budget was $550,000, and just in 2 years, now our budget is $1 million, guys. So we have been growing in this tough time of COVID and such. So, so be encouraged. I always like to say that, be encouraged. I saw Pastor Elise. Was that a clap or did you have your hand raised?
That was supposed to be a clap.
Okay, good.
Great.
All right, well, that's an appropriate clap. I appreciate it. Very good. So anyway, so we will be having more of these guys, these webinars for alternative schools, but be encouraged, guys. You guys are an encouragement to us to see parents taking back the responsibility of the education of your children. And so much going on in Massachusetts in many ways is the first in the fight. You know, we are setting the precedent in some ways, guys, on this alternative school movement that might surprise a lot of people. So anyway, we'll be sending out information to you to follow up on this. We have a recording. Again, text the word pod to 87891 if you want a recording of this webinar. Text the word pod to 87891. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, guys, and we will be in touch. Thank you, panelists, for joining us and all that you're doing to
Thank you, Mike.
forward on this alternative school movement. Thanks again.